Funding for the Long Island Business Report has been provided by the Roush Foundation.
Hello, and thank you for being with us. I'm Jim Paymar with the Long Island Business Report. Back in 2012, Superstorm Sandy devastated Long Island, causing an estimated $1.1 billion in damage. The city of Long Beach on the south shore of Nassau County was one of the hardest hit communities, suffering approximately $200 million in damage. But the city has largely recovered and is now planning a major downtown redevelopment. But is Long Island ready for the next Sandy that is almost certain to come? Joining me to discuss this are John Cameron, founder of Cameron Engineering and chairman of the Long Island Regional Planning Commission, and Jack Schnirman, city manager of the city of Long Beach. John, Jack, thank you so much for being with us today.
Pleasure, Jim. Thanks.
You know, John, it was not that long ago we sat here talking about Sandy.
Absolutely.
And 4 or 5 years have passed. How are we doing in terms of protecting the island?
I think with regard to addressing mitigation measures with the resources that were made available by the federal government, I think the island has done a reasonable job. Unfortunately, to deal with the issue of storm surge, climate change, et cetera, it takes a regional approach. And I think, we need significant funds in order to accomplish that.
Tell me where the successes are. Tell me where we're still lagging.
I think successes-wise, I think if you look at some of the money that was best spent, the Bay Park Sewage Treatment Plant, which has had approximately $700+ million of infrastructure investment to make the plant more resilient, it was a critical investment, and I think money well spent. City of Long Beach, which candidly was ground zero for Superstorm Sandy, probably has had the most vivid accomplishments with the restoration and rebuilding of its boardwalk and some other resiliency along the north side of the city of Long Beach. But on the island, it's been more and more a piecemeal approach rather than a regional approach, and to a large extent, that's principally due to the availability of a certain amount of funding.
Jack, as John just said, Long Beach was ground zero. I was down there. I spent a lot of time after the storm, and you were really decimated down there. Piles of debris everywhere, cars buried by sand. But now you go down there, it looks pretty normal. Give me your evaluation of how Long Beach fares today.
Well, I think everybody knows that, Long Beach was completely devastated in Superstorm Sandy. The ocean met the bay in the center of our city. The boardwalk was devastated. It moved several blocks. Debris was all over the place. Thousands of cars lost throughout the city. Homes devastated. And so 4 years later, we've made an incredible amount of progress. Our city council set out a goal right away to rebuild stronger, smarter, and safer, become a real model of resiliency, and we're well on our way there. So what we've seen is we've poured a lot of money, and we've won a lot of money and fought hard for it to rebuild our infrastructure. We've got a brand new boardwalk that was built on time, under budget, less than a year after the storm, and it's a real model of resiliency. And we did it with a project labor agreement, working together with our brothers and sisters in labor. So we see a whole new set of resiliency there, and that's really a testament to what can be done as a region. We have big projects coming in on our south side of the island. We're doing reconstruction, Army Corps of Engineers project. On the north side, we're doing about $40 million worth of work to protect ourselves on the bay side, and we're doing everything that we can to get our residents the resources that they need and deserve to elevate their homes, make them more resilient, more protected. And it's been a team effort. So,
John, there are a lot of places on Long Island where water can breach
Yes.
and come into our communities.
Yes.
What's being done to stop that? I know other countries have built giant barriers that kind of close
Yes.
off when these big storms come.
So the Army Corps of Engineers has been moving forward with what's called the Montauk-Fire Island project, and then also moving from Fire Island west with regard to the dunes and resiliency on the south side of the island. That's to basically provide a level of protection for wave action and storm surge. However, what we do have, if you will, in that proverbial wall, we have 7 openings called inlets. Mm-hmm. And those inlets allow water to basically, through whether it's climate change, elevated sea levels, or storm surge, for the water to pass through there, if you will, holes in the dike, which is what happened to the city of Long Beach. Basically, the city flooded to a large degree from the north because the water coming through East Rockaway Inlet and Jones Inlet basically surcharged and came over the bulkheading and over the ground on topping Long Beach. But you have these 7 inlets, which, candidly, if we had movable barriers which could close prior to a storm and open for normal operations, they could provide a bulwark against flooding. I would like to point out these movable barriers are installed in many areas, in many cities around the country. You have them in London, you have them in Rotterdam, Tokyo, Venice, St. Petersburg, employing proven technology that actually could be utilized here, not only on Long Island, but for the New York metropolitan area.
Jack, where's the money going to come from to do something like that? I think we're talking billions of dollars to do a project like that.
Well, I think John makes a great point, first of all. One of the things that we've saw in Long Beach is that we've done a great job winning the resources that we need to rebuild correctly in Long Beach. And Freeport and other places are doing similar efforts. But to John's point, a real regional approach is what is in order, and the county can be a real great convener for that, to look not just at Long Beach or Freeport or Massapequa, but how do we look at the entirety of the South Shore of Long Island and the entirety of all of Long Island to make sure we're properly protected. Only really a regional approach is going to get it done. And in terms of cost, as the old saying goes, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Well, John, you're the chairman of the Long Island Regional Planning Commission. Do we see the cooperation between Nassau County, between the towns, between the cities to make something like that? And the federal government, of course.
I think on an issue like this, you do have cooperation between the municipalities. Unfortunately, we don't have the resources to really develop the solution. Whether it's the town of Hempstead and the supervisor Tony Santino working with Jack Schnirman in the city of Long Beach, because they have communities which abut each other, just even on the Long Beach Island there, whether it's Atlantic Beach, East Atlantic Beach in the city of Long Beach, Lido Point Lookout. They share the common shore on the south side, being the ocean and the beaches, and on the north side, they share the whole north side barrier there.
Right.
So you have cooperation also between both counties. County executives cooperate, whether it's County Executive Ballone or County Executive Mangano. They've been cooperating on basically on a collegial basis.
Do you see President Trump, and obviously, we don't know where he stands on a lot of these kinds of issues, but do you feel that the administration will be forthcoming with the kind of dollars and Congress will be, because you can't do it without the feds?
No. What's interesting is that, and the operative term today is, we all know, is infrastructure.
Right. That
actually happened to be one area that Congress has always agreed on, is the need to fund infrastructure. The Republicans said cut entitlement spending, and the Democrats said raise revenues, which was taxes. So nothing ever got done. We also, in the presidential debate, we had both Secretary Clinton and now President Trump both agreeing that we need to fund infrastructure. That's going to happen. But to what extent and where it's going to go, I think to a large degree we're all fortunate that President Trump is a New Yorker. However, I think there has to be some enlightenment with regard to issues of climate change. His appointment of the new proposed director of the EPA, I think there has to be some discussion. And I think one thing we can all agree on is that the climate is changing, sea levels are rising. We can argue about the effect man has on that, but
it's happening.
For certain, it is happening.
Okay. And Jack, you talked about the Bay, and John, you talked about the Bay as well, coming in and really doing the greatest damage to Long Beach. And there's also a lot of pollution in Reynolds Bay from the Bay Park sewage plant. What's being done to correct that? I know that we've built berms around it to protect it from the next storm, but there's still a lot of pollution coming into Reynolds Channel.
So the Bay Park sewage treatment plant has been polluting Reynolds Channel for quite a long time now. And one of the things that we're looking at is to see a real outfall pipe so that we no longer pollute Reynolds Channel, and for Long Beach to cooperate with the county with our sewage treatment plant. And the hope there is we will stop. I look at it and I say, I've got a young daughter. She's just 1 year old. And my hope is that she'll be able to do something recreational in the channel someday without coming out with more than a healthy glow, shall we say.
Let me interrupt and just an outflow pipe. Just explain for the viewers what that is and what we're talking about.
The simplest way to put it is stop polluting Reynolds Channel. Stop pumping sewage into Reynolds Channel. That's the bottom line. And so we can begin to regenerate that from an environmental perspective.
And it will go where?
It will go several miles out into the ocean and be treated.
And how is that going to happen? What's the transportation mode to get rid of that sewage?
It would be what's called an outflow pipe.
Yeah, I know, but does it already exist, or are we going to build it?
The county is actually, if I may, the county is actually advancing a proposal where they can utilize an existing pipe that goes along Sunrise Highway that goes from Queens all the way out east. And they're proposing to pump treated sewage from Bay Park up to Sunrise Highway, to install a new pipe inside this pipe and to pump that treated sewage over to Wanto and Seaford area to the Cedar Creek plant, which already has, it's a county-wide plant, already has an ocean outfall. So they actually would not have to construct a new ocean outfall. They'd be utilizing existing infrastructure, and they would pump the treated sewage to the Cedar Creek plant and then pump it from there through the existing outfall. They're presently doing an evaluation to look and see whether this can be accomplished. But a couple of advantages: it would be cheaper and could happen faster.
Doesn't pollute the oceans?
No, candidly, this is treated sewage. But it used to be the old adage was the solution to pollution was dilution. But going out 3 miles out into the ocean, it is really somewhat de minimis compared to dumping it into a confined bay, if you will, such as Hempstead Bay between Long Beach and Bay Park.
Jack, what else needs to be done from your point of view to help facilitate communities like yours from not having to go through the pain and suffering that you went through in 2012 from Sandy?
Smart, modern, resilient infrastructure. We can't afford to have another storm the way we had before without having done the right investment. And we see some of that investment starting now, but there's a lot more that we need to do.
What are you talking, dunes? So you're talking breakwaters, that type of thing?
All of the smart resiliency things, whether it be dune infrastructure that's going in now with the Army Corps of Engineer project, and we thank Senator Schumer for that, for fighting for a fully funded Army Corps of Engineers project. The governor has been a tremendous champion for us in making sure that we have the proper projects on our bay side of the city. So for a place like Long Beach, we know that we're going to have the sort of protection we need. But as John points out, looking broader, which is what we have to do, we need real cooperation, multiple levels of government to have smart, modern, resilient infrastructure going forward so that we can make sure that we're protected as an entire island and entire region.
Let's switch gears to train travel. Right. That's an infrastructure issue that everyone agrees is a problem. Everything from the lack of track in many locations to the east side access. Also, parking is a major issue for most of the train stations. What do you see going on, John?
There's a lot going on right now, actually. The governor, utilizing his political and financial capital behind a major project that was sitting on the shelf for many years, the third track, is actually being advanced moving forward. The MTA and the Long Island Railroad are presently going to be selecting design builders for that project. They're completing the permitting process. They've been going through a number of hearings. In fact, last week they just had a number of hearings there also. The third track, which would actually expand the capacity from the Long Island Railroad's main track from Floral Park to Hicksville, will basically open up the arteries and enable flow to move effectively east-west and west-east, depending on peak periods, which would enable Long Island to fully capitalize on the East Side Access Project. Right now, without that, we're constricted and not going to be able. We're choked. We're choked, and we're not going to be able to fully develop that.
So this is about a 10-mile project from Floral Park to Hicksville, correct?
Correct.
And it builds a third track
third track.
And it's not going to decimate neighborhoods.
No, it's actually, they've actually revised the plan from a prior plan, so there will be no condemnation of any residential areas. They have some minor condemnation where they're negotiating with some of the commercial owners, but this plan has been revised so that it will not take residential properties.
And are there 5 lines that come into the Hicksville area? And
Hicksville is really is the vortex, and it is in fact, like I said, the confluence of a number of lines, and then they will splinter from there, heading east and of course heading west.
And Jack, how does this help Long Beach? I mean, you've got a line that comes right into your downtown, not too far from your office. And so how does the third track help Long Beach?
This would be a big help for places like Long Beach. So I say this as the husband of a commuter. This will reduce delays. It'll move things faster. And that's one of the things that we need. You know, there's only every time, we get that call, oh, there's a delay on the line. My wife's not going to make it home in time to pick up the baby. That's a big deal. It's a major, smart, modern economic transportation is a major driver of our economy going forward. And just take the same discussion going forward. So, one of the things we talk about is we hope that our daughter gets in Reynolds Channel in the morning, right? Yeah. And does something recreational, and then can get on public transportation and take that train up or bus rapid transit or light rail, whatever makes the most economic sense, up to Nassau, the center of the county, to get a job, to go to school, to see a show, or to see the Islanders, right? This is the sort of, this is where we need to go, and this is where we need to get back to. And some of us still believe we're all still Islanders, right?
Right, but we got to go to Brooklyn for it.
Yeah, right.
Maybe they'll come back.
Maybe they'll come back.
What about north-south transportation, though? Because, you can get it. The Long Island Railroad was built for people to get into New York City, and it does a pretty good job at that. I got in here in about 36 minutes today.
Yes.
But north-south,
North-South
is
a challenge, not just in Nassau County or for the city of Long Beach, but across Long Island. You have major corridors, which are actually, whether it's up to the Nassau Hub, which Coliseum site, is a major challenge where you have economic development plan for that area there. But to try and get north-south, it's a bear. Going out further east, really, if you look at the business centroid on Long Island, is really the Melville or 110 corridor. We don't have a bus rapid transit system there, which works there, as well as actually further out east of Nichols Road, where you could connect Stony Brook University, Brookhaven National Labs, and as well as to Long Island Railroad. There's a number of north-south corridors which need to be constructed and implemented. If otherwise we're not going to be able to grow our hubs.
Where are we on any of that? I mean, I don't see anything really.
There is some planning. We're actually working with Nassau County on bus rapid transit plan for the Nassau Hub, as well as Suffolk County. The Long Island MacArthur Airport has received state funding, and Angie Carpenter, the supervisor of the town of Islip, in conjunction with County Executive Balone, have been championing this Connect Long Island, where you can actually connect the major transit nodes with your employment centers. So that's actually being further studied, but it's got to move from study to design to implementation.
We talked a moment ago about the sewage plant, the North Bay sewage plant, and the pipeline and the outfall pipe. Right. But one thing I don't think people realize is how underserved we are by sewerage in general on Long Island, that we still have hundreds of thousands of people who don't have sewers.
In Nassau County, we've probably got a couple 100,000 which are still served by septic tanks and cesspools in a major developed area. People would be shocked. Suffolk County, we have over 1 million people which are not served by sewers. And without sewers, we're not going to get density. Without density, we're not going to get affordability. Without affordability, we're not going to grow our tax base. It's critical that we get this wastewater infrastructure constructed here on Long Island.
And Jack, what about redevelopment? I know you got a big plan that you're studying right now that's going to totally revise and revitalize downtown Long Beach. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on?
Sure. We've been going through a comprehensive plan process in Long Beach to think about what do we look like for the future, how are we going to be more sustainable and resilient, and how are we going to grow our local economy and grow our tax base, which takes the burden off of our local taxpayers, which is absolutely critical. Nobody wants to see taxes go up. So we've looked at some opportunities for redevelopment in the city to create the kind of transit-oriented development and housing that both the younger generation wants, as well as recent retirees. And we have all the assets in Long Beach that people are looking for, right? We have walkable downtown that we want to continue to improve. We have the ability to reverse commute and have job creation in Long Beach. Who wouldn't want to go to work in the morning overlooking the ocean, right? And surf before you work. It's a real great opportunity. So we're looking at targeted areas of redevelopment that are sustainable for our city that'll help grow our economy.
Where's the funding?
The funding will have to come from private sources, of course. The city's not looking to pump in funding for that. It's not something that we as a small city have the capacity to do. But what we can do is set the rules, set them right, get the public involved, which we've been doing, make sure we're listening to the public, and that we're doing thoughtful, sustainable redevelopment rather than overdevelopment.
Are there developers coming to the table?
You know, I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of interest in the potential projects coming down the pike, and that would be something very exciting for us.
You know, Jim, Jack touches on something which I think is critical, and it's a very important point, is you'll hear everywhere you go, the government's broke, we have no money. But government really, I think, to me, has something that's more important than a balance sheet and money in the bank. It's called zoning power. Zoning power can entice and enable the private sector to come into their municipalities and to provide capital, not just to grow the tax base, but to also provide public benefits and host benefit fees for the community. They can grow their economy with the private dollars, but they need to incentivize them through the zoning.
Okay, and so you've got this one major area of Long Beach called the Super Block, which has got wonderful views of the ocean. It's been sitting there for, I don't know,
decades.
25 years. I've been out here. What's going to happen there?
Well, you know, we'd like to see that redeveloped in really the right way as well. It was tied up in decades of litigation that we're so proud to have broken that logjam several years ago. Right now, it's sitting in the hands of the Nassau County IDA, and we're hopeful that they'll be able to find a path forward to see that project redeveloped in a way that works for everybody. Right, their job is to find the best bang for the buck for the taxpayer out of that project, and we are hopeful that they will sort that out.
Mostly housing, mostly condos, apartments, and some retail. Is that what you're looking at?
It would be housing and condos. There would be some retail along the boardwalk, which would be nice. You know, which is part of the overall flavor of what we've been bringing in to Long Beach. Right now, you see great food along the boardwalk, things to do along the boardwalk in our downtown. Real investment and reinvestment going on there. We have bike lanes that are going to be protected coming in, and good transit-oriented things. So we see a real revitalized downtown coming slowly but surely into Long Beach.
John, what other major infrastructure projects do you see that we need on Long Island?
Well, when you look at growing an economy or sustainability, you look at a number of different infrastructure areas. We talked about transportation, talked about the environment. You need to talk about energy. Energy, we have the power generating facilities we have in Long Island. The major ones are really 40, 50 years old. So they're the least efficient, probably the most polluting. We need to repower those facilities, whether it's the Barrett Station in Island Park or possibly Northport. But the governor's advanced this very ambitious agenda with, 50 by 30, which is 50% renewable energy by 2030. So LIPA, the Long Island Power Authority, just this past week has authorized a contract with Deepwater Wind for a 90-megawatt plant to be built 30 miles southeast of Montauk to provide power for the South Fork, okay? We need to do a lot more than that. The LIPA is also advancing through its procurement process, looking to get some other renewable energy projects there. So it's really a blend, if you will, of fossil fuel projects, which are the existing gas-burning facilities around the island, as well as renewable power. LIPA has a very ambitious solar power program. Now they're moving towards wind power, which will, I think, provide a major complement to that.
But I
portfolio.
thought subsidies are going away for helping people and businesses.
They are, and we're hopeful that some will return. I believe that some of the vendors have some established subsidies and they're already in the bank. They basically they've reserved some capacity there. So we're hopeful that they still will be available for the island.
And what about renewable wind power around Long Beach? I mean, the plan you're talking about,
it's not visible
John,
from the shore.
That's like near Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts.
That's
way,
the one
way
which is built. That's the first one they've built. The second one is it's going to be 30 miles southeast of Montauk. It won't be visible from the shore.
Anything going on with renewables in Long Beach, Jack?
Well, in Long Beach, we've been encouraging solar, and we've also we're phasing out plastic carry-out bags. So it's one of the from an environmental perspective, we're looking to lead the region in those things. Mm-hmm. And there's discussion of offshore wind as well.
Okay. Well, it's an interesting discussion. We could go on for a long time. Lots needs to be done on Long Island. We're an old suburb.
Right.
We're trying to regenerate ourselves. It's not easy to do, but hopefully, working with the Regional Planning Council, working with cities, towns, and the new administration, maybe we can get some things done and improve our quality of life, become more competitive with the other regions of the country.
Right. It's not just for our children, such as Jack's daughter. It's for our grandchildren.
Grandchildren, right? And
right.
Congratulations on yours.
I can relate. Thanks.
Well, that wraps up our conversation on Long Island's infrastructure. For more on the Long Island Business Report, log on to our website, and you can also find us on Facebook and join the conversation on Twitter. I'm Jim Paymar. Thank you for joining us for this edition of the Long Island Business Report, and we'll see you next time.
Funding for the Long Island Business Report has been provided by the Roush Foundation.